On this week's Most Craved.
Remakes, an exciting new perspective or just more of the same?
Remakes, an exciting new perspective or just more of the same?
Please don't touch the last unicorn. Hey guys, welcome to Most Craved. I'm Jenna Bush with Legion of Leia.
I'm Silas Lesnick with ComingSoon.net.
I'm William Bibiani with Crave Online. Hey, we're talking remakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remakes are not new, but they just keep coming, and I feel like lately they've been touching a couple of nostalgia properties that are making people really nervous. I know some people reacted very strongly and sometimes even negatively to the recent Point Break trailer.
And there was the big news this week that Dwayne Johnson is going to headline a remake of Big Trouble in Little China, playing the Kurt Russell role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's the... I'm normally not entirely anti-remake. There's actually a lot of amazing remakes out there, recently and old. I mean, we're talking about classics like Fistful of Dollars, and The Magnificent Seven, and Fatal Attraction, but also recent films
Even
like
Wizard of Oz, Maltese
Wizard of Oz,
Falcon.
yep.
yeah, exactly. Or more recent stuff like The Departed, and they can be great. But you have to bring something distinctive and new to it. You have to update the material, recontextualize the material, or at least find a new and exciting way to visualize it. But Big Trouble in Little China is really pushing my buttons, because this is like one of my 5 favorite movies of all time. And so I'm starting to feel that nostalgic fury that I think a lot of people feel all the time when they announced Point Break is a remake. Anger.
Well, part of the problem with this and a lot of the remakes that are out there is that some things are very much of their time. And if you take something like this and try to update it and make it grittier, which is a lot of times what they do, it's not going to work. You're going to take all the joy and fun out of it.
Well, I think the thing is, Big Trouble in Little China is not a gritty movie.
No, it's not.
It's actually a very silly movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I'm not sure contemporary remakes of clever movies are doing a particularly good job of keeping that cleverness alive. You look at something like Len Wiseman's Total Recall, which took a very funny, very imaginative, very surreal film and made it very generic and gritty and actiony.
And weirdly boring.
And because of that, I think very boring. But Big Trouble in Little China was very subversive at the time. It came in at an age of badass cinema where white, muscly heroes were beating up gang members of all ethnicities. And Big Trouble in Little China made that guy, he's the main character, but from the story perspective, he's the sidekick, and he does almost nothing useful the entire movie.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't even realize that when they watch it for the first time. But I will say this, Dwayne Johnson, if you have to replace Kurt Russell, Dwayne Johnson is a good pick. He's very funny, he's very self-effacing, he's not afraid to make fun of his own image in films like Pain and Gain. I don't know, what do you think?
You know, it's a movie that the original film was sort of a cinematic universe that we never got to fully embrace. The Jack Burton character actually appeared in a script for Buckaroo Banzai 2, which was W.D. Richter was the one who came in and rewrote Big Trouble in Little China. And it was supposed to be the same universe, which is a neat idea. That's all the more reason in my mind, like, what? Don't make this a remake, make it a sequel, make another movie. I mean, he doesn't literally have to be Jack Burton. He can be a relative of Jack Burton. He can even be Jack Burton, but it's a sequel. Like,
yeah, just now he's playing Jack Burton. Jack Burton got a little jacked. You know, he spent a lot of time at the gym. Okay, he got a lot jacked. Like, Kurt Russell is like one of Dwayne Johnson's shoulders, okay? But like, it's still cool. And that's an interesting point, and I do feel like there was different elements. There's a richness to Big Trouble in Little China. It's very steeped in Chinese mythology, and it gets some of it right and it gets some of it wrong, but it was something that we hadn't seen a lot of in America. And Big Trouble in Little China, of course, went on to greatly influence like stuff like Mortal Kombat.
Woo!
And I think it expanded our consciousness of this other genre.
Yeah.
It's also a situation where there's a number of strange terms when it comes to remake, because it used to be that you just call anything, if you're making something and you're making it again, it's a remake. Studios started throwing out terms like reimagining. There's the term reboot, there's readaptation. And the tricky thing is that it doesn't really mean anything. Everybody, and I've talked to other film critics, they all have slightly different variations of what these terms mean. And there's no real source that you can go to and say, like, well, the term reimagining began with this. As far as I know, it was Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. I remember that was the buzzword for.
Well, a remake has a stigma to it, and so they just wanted to call it something else, but also tell you that they're just remaking it.
New shiny version.
Well, because it's a marketing thing. You know, we have this property, the title has value, and we can only make so much money off of re-releasing the original on home video. So let's take this title that everyone is familiar with and do something new with it. It's a very mercenary way of approaching filmmaking. It's not like, oh, we got a great story. They might. But it's basically we just need to find a way to make more money.
Yeah.
So you're remaking it. Now some people say if it's based on a film that was adapted from something else, it's not a remake. I think that's crap personally. I think you're making it again. You're making it again. It's a remake. You're doing the film again. Let it go. But I think reboot has come to mean not only are we remaking something, but we're trying to jumpstart a franchise out of it. We're pushing it forward. We're not just remaking it, we're trying to jumpstart a whole series.
But sometimes you even see a reboot set in the same continuity. So it's a sequel, but it's also a reboot.
So it's sort of like a revival of the franchise. And I know things like, say, Tomorrowland, which didn't do particularly well, always caused people to say, well, we can't do original stories because no one goes to see them. But that's the same argument in my mind as you can't have female superheroes because Catwoman sucked. And it's because it just sucked.
It's one of those things that's sort of crazy. People like to say, oh, there's just terrible movies out nowadays. The fact of the matter is I get paid to professionally see movies, and there's so many good movies that come out every year that I don't have time to watch them all.
Yep.
No, there are literally like over 600-700 movies just released theatrically. Every year now. No one has that much time, at least when you have to write about them.
Yeah.
And I sort of think of the originality versus, it's almost like this like class status in filmmaking. It doesn't really mean anything. No. You can have great, wonderful movies that are a remake, and you can have terrible original movies.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, because that's sort of why when a trailer comes out and we talk about it here and we're like, oh, it doesn't really look good. And I don't care. I want it to be good. I want every movie to be good. If you've got a reason to remake something, cool. I just don't want it to suck. That's just like, if you've got a reason to remake it, if you think that's why it happens with a lot of horror movies where you can bring something new to it, where you can bring new technology or better special effects or better practical effects. Those tend to work fairly well,
you look
not
at something
always.
like David Cronenberg's The Fly, which took a very straight up, kind of corny monster movie conceit of a guy who ends up getting a fly head. Oh no. And then he managed to not only update it with brilliant practical effects that are just disgusting, but also to take that story and make it about something more meaningful and really make a potent metaphor for slowly dying of disease, which is something that a lot of people have experience with, at the very least, watching that happen to a relative. And it becomes way more powerful and way more potent. And I'm not sure what that is for Big Trouble in Little China, though, but I think there's been talk of that maybe they're trying to remake or reboot The Last Starfighter. And that's one of my favorite movies.
Mine too, don't mess it up.
But here's the thing with The Last Starfighter, I feel like there is something to be done with Last Starfighter in a modern milieu. The way that people approached video games in like the early 80s as this very flighty, just these arcade cabinets and we waste quarters on them and that's that. Oh, but what if they were really training modules for actual fighter jets in space? That was the original idea. Gaming culture has evolved so much, and in some cases devolved, but there's so many different elements to it now that you could explore that I actually think that could be really interesting to remake something like Last Starfighter.
Just don't mess it up. Well, there's one other thing that a lot of that people are doing where you have like Disney. I believe, I don't think it's official yet, but there was talk this morning, or yesterday morning when you see this, of taking a sequence from Fantasia, Night on Bald Mountain, and doing a full-length live-action film. And so Disney's doing a lot of that. So instead of rebooting their animated classics, they're doing live-action versions of them.
And I've liked some of them. I thought Alice in Wonderland was terrible, but I thought Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella was actually a very effective, charming, sweet, romantic.
And I mean, there's some irony there in that Cinderella is a very, very literal remake, and Alice in Wonderland is more of a sequel. But it's completely. I think a great example is Let Me In, the Matt Reeves, which is a wonderful film. It's very, very similar to Let the Right One In.
I love them both.
Yeah, I think that things can exist. I think there's room for plenty of. I don't know. I think the reaction, the rolling your eyes and saying, "Oh, how banal," is like that's the problem. It's not the movies themselves.
Yeah. Although I have to say, one thing I did like about Let Me In versus Let the Right One In is there was less snot. Because I don't understand why the kid always
It was
has his
cold.
nose, but he's 12 or
And it's cold
knows how
out
to
there.
use
He's got a runny nose.
tissue. It's just always snot. Sorry.
Snot boogie.
I'm glad that went away.
Okay.
In the remake. See, you can update things and make them better.
You can update things, and I think kind of what we're saying is there's way too much knee-jerk reaction to this, and we all just are trying to make the best movies that we can, and we're all just hoping for the best. So until we see them and until they actually suck, maybe relax, because it's going to be okay. Your life will go on. Big Trouble in Little China is fine. It will always be here. And if anyone watches the new version and it sucks and they think it's great, show them the original and prove them wrong.
Yeah, that's
Prove
good.
them wrong.
I like it.
Prove them wrong. What do you think? Tweet us at Most Craved. Remakes, yay or nay?
What should you not remake?
Yes. What is sacrosanct? Like, what can't we ever remake? Like, what would be like the last
The
straw?
Last Unicorn. Don't touch it. Tweet us at Most Craved.
Apparently, the last unicorn.
Yeah.